Hello, this is my Module 3 end of module speak, responding to prompt number 3 about modernism and modernization. Tonight, we'll examine the relationship between the architectural innovations of the Industrial Revolution and the cultural responses to and integrations with this innovation through the lenses of John Ruskin's Seven Lamps of Architecture and Frank Lloyd Wright's Art, Craft, and the Machine. In doing so, we'll uncover how approaching these lenses of a modernization in a contemporary context can create an approach to maintaining craft in the face of our own innovation. First, we'll examine Ruskin's ideologies towards craft and discern their position in modern historical preservation, before moving to Wright's approach to innovation and what it can mean for modern urbanism and its intricacies. By examining these differing approaches to the same era of architecture and their places in contemporary architectural problems, we may discover how old approaches can solve new problems, and thus gain a better appreciation for the theories of historical architects as we look to them to gain precedence for the problems we face that often rhyme with their own. Beginning with John Ruskin's virtue of intricate craft, in John Ruskin's Seven Lamps of Architecture, he helps us interpret architecture through the lens of the arts and crafts movement. James Chakraborty's Architecture Since 1400 describes Ruskin's views as the virtues of architecture as seen in its apparent craft and labor as seen in the end product. References are made to the intricate details of Gothic environments as he sees the handcraft of human beings as they've made this architecture. He also describes the lamp of life, as life is breathed into architecture by not only the hands that crafted it, but the minds that designed it, and thus the morality imposed upon architecture by the morality of its designer. Moving on, we'll interpret this in the contemporary context. First, I'd like to begin with William Morris's finely crafted furniture and the irony behind it. Chakraborty also describes William Morris as a man who believed that craft should be for everyone, but in creating this intricate crafted furniture, he was only able to sell it to the bourgeoisie because of its terrible, highly price. This irony is similar to many of the false perceptions surrounding historical preservation and affordable housing. False perceptions that preservational policies limit further growth and enforce strict guidelines that prevent the construction of affordable housing types. In the U.S. Department of Housing and American Council on Historical Preservation's guidebook for affordable housing and historical preservation, the document suggests that the solution to this issue lies in thoughtful design and craft to restore older, pre-existing forms of affordable housing under the policy of historical preservation that mandates that they be restored and preserved in a manner fitting to Ruskin's demands to view the virtues of architecture in the apparent craft of the building. So though they might have stricter regulations on the restoration of these historic affordable homes, they are going to be crafted and restored in a much better way than if they were non-historical. Someone who paid a lot of attention to affordable housing is Frank Lloyd Wright. And moving to Frank Lloyd Wright, we'll explore his modernized domestic environment as both cultural modernism and innovative modernization. As this is interpreted in the context of the arts and crafts movement, Wright writes The Art and Craft of the Machine, and he describes Chicago as not being some terrible monster, but merely a machine made and maintained within human hands, that while highly efficient and functioning, needs the breath of artists and architects to breathe into it in order to live communally. James Chakraborty's Architecture Since 1400 describes Wright's designs as representing the perfect cohesion of modernization's new spaces and structures made possible by industry and innovation, with the precedence of Japan on organics of sites to create a uniquely domestic environment with materials previously unused in the domestic sphere. As interpreted in the context of the contemporary urban intricacies in our modern day, In the class after the Belmont Mansion tour, we discussed not only preservation versus restoration, but the broader discussion throughout Belmont of tradition and innovation. I believe that Wright would have agreed with President Greg Jones that innovation ought not exist for innovation's sake, but that it might be paired with tradition to keep what works and is natural, such as he often kept the site as it was and worked with it, while also integrating new innovations into our designs that we might continue to solve problems that tradition has either ignored or created, such as many of the problems surrounding urban affordable housing. And while this might be jumping forward, I think it's also important to note that Frank Lloyd Wright realized similar ideals later in his career with his Usonian homes, as I learned at the Rosenbaum House. As the Great Depression brought to the forefront America's need for affordable housing, and thus he applied his ideology towards modernism to begin solving these complex problems. To close, we've explored John Ruskin's virtues behind the craft of architecture and Frank Lloyd Wright's unique modernism to generate contemporary solutions to our own encounters with the problems that accompany modernization and modernism. We've done this by taking a closer look at how Ruskin's ideology of maintaining craft can benefit both historical preservation and affordable housing, in a similar fashion to how Frank Lloyd Wright's dual approach to tradition and innovation compare with our own modern perceptions of this concept and how we approach solutions to urban intricacies. So I hope that by examining these ideologies of the arts and crafts movement, we might not only gain appreciation for the craft and innovation in the movement, but discover how they might be combined in a contemporary context to solve our contemporary problems. Thank you.